Hello everyone and welcome to another brand new episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I am your host, DylanLasagna, and man. Some Super Bowl, huh? Some Super Bowl that we're hyping up to be as the future GOAT versus the GOAT. So much for that, huh? How about them Chiefs, huh? Oh boy. Super Bowl 55. The only thing that was memorable about Super Bowl 55 was that Paramount Plus commercial where it had SpongeBob SquarePants finally performing Sweet Victory during the Super Bowl in a commercial. Oh man. What is going on, everyone? How has been your week? How was your Super Bowl Sunday? And I wouldn't call, I don't know. What can I say about the Super Bowl? To begin this show today. I wouldn't call it one of the worst Super Bowls. It was a blowout, but it necessarily wasn't one of the most boring. I still hold my reservations to that title to Super Bowl 53 a couple of years ago, where I would literally fell asleep during that Rams-Patriots Super Bowl, and I was still pissed that they didn't give us that tribute to SpongeBob creator Steven Hillenburg, but it was in the past. But anyway, Super Bowl 55, we saw at the end of the day who wanted to win it, who had more motivation to win it, and who clearly did not want to win it. That's all I could say. So thank you all for joining me on this fine podcast that houses a safe, casual, and open forum for all those three adjectives: casual, cold, and even dumbest takes on the world of the NFL, as well as the WWE and All Elite Wrestling, along with the general world of sports and wrestling in general. So we're going to cover all things Super Bowl today, but first we got to do them plugs. If you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. It helps me continue to grow as we continue along our podcasting journey. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified of the vodcast, the aka video podcast that goes up each and every week. And you get to see all the exclusive YouTube extras that don't go to the audio listening platforms. So you get to see those. If you listen to this podcast on an audio platform, I am available on 3 listening platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor FM. So if you want to get your chill thrills on this Very Cold Lasagna podcast via audio, I am available on those 3 listening spaces. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. So if you want to see what I'm up to regarding the show, or just want to see whatever weird things that I do outside of the show, you can go check those out. You can go check out my Twitter and Instagram podcast page. Super Bowl 55, we had the AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl champion of the world, going up against the NFC champion, and for the first time in history, the first team in Super Bowl and NFL history to play the big game in its home stadium, and technically the first true pure home team in the history of the sport, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, this was played in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, in the Bucs home stadium. And to recap what I mentioned last week in regards to some burning questions, some storylines that I had, keys to victory that I mentioned last week in the preview episode of Super Bowl 55. I mentioned how much confidence should we give the Bucs secondary in limiting the Chiefs big massive weapons in Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, McCole Hardman, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and vice versa. The Chiefs secondary, when they had to go up against Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, and the reserve that were suddenly coming up, Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller. And that was all just on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, for both the Chiefs and the Bucs, was pretty much just a battle of who was going to get more pressure on whoever's quarterback. Now, as for the keys to victory, as for the Chiefs, I talked about how suspect the Bucs secondary was. So Patrick Mahomes should have been able to dissect that secondary all game long with his litany of weapons, along with the running game Mahomes possesses in himself. And for the Chiefs front seven, with the Bucs offensive line being sometimes there and sometimes not, they could have pressured Brady into making bad decisions like he did late in the NFC Championship game, and the front seven could have shut down the run game. And that Chiefs secondary should have had the repeat performance like they did against the Bills and limit the Bucs' linear receivers. As for the Bucs, I mentioned linebackers Shaquille Better and Jason Pierre-Paul needed to have a big game yet again, this time perhaps their biggest game in the Super Bowl, by pressuring Mahomes and even sacking him. And the offensive line needed to protect Brady at all costs so he can have time to throw, get connections with all of his receivers. And speaking of the receivers, the receiving game, everyone in that receiving game needs to have their best game of their career by not letting Brady down, not dropping passes, getting open on their routes, not making big time mistakes that could cost the Bucs this game. And I picked the Chiefs by 7, and let me say why I mentioned that. Let me reiterate why I mentioned that. I mentioned that even though Tom Brady was still playing at a high level, I thought that Mahomes and the Chiefs offense was going to be able to take advantage of a still porous and you don't know what kind of secondary you were going to get. So it was going to be a shootout. I thought it was going to be a shootout that Mahomes and Brady were going to battle it out till who knows which it was going to either come to 4th down or a field goal. And I thought it was going to be an exciting game. But, boy, was I wrong. Was I fucking wrong. This went exactly not as... this went completely off the script. But it didn't start that way. So, the first quarter, both teams go 3 and out. The Bucs get the ball to start the first half because the Chiefs won the coin toss. They defer. So the Bucs get the ball to start the first half. Brady hands it off at first, and then I don't know if it was either on the opening possession or on their second possession, but Brady, at some point during one of those first 2 possessions, Brady got sacked. So the offensive line already failed Brady in one of those 2 possessions, but we'll get to their offensive line in a second. So either way, both teams had to punt on their first possessions, but Kansas City on their second possession managed to get a field goal to take the first lead of the night at 3-0. But on the Bucs' third possession, they actually managed to attack the secondary. And in nearly 5 minutes, Tom Brady found Rob Gronkowski, the tight end, open, and Gronk ran in the end zone untouched for the first touchdown in the game. So Tom Brady and Gronk in the biggest game, and again, that's where the experience factor plays. They connected once again to take the 7-3 lead. So we head into the second quarter. The Chiefs have to punt the ball, and this is where you kind of start to notice that Chiefs offensive line is starting to sell out. Like, you don't notice it right away, but it's starting to look like that offensive line is not holding up its end of the bargain to let Patrick Mahomes find like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, or his other receivers like in ample amount of time, which is forcing Mahomes to run out of the pocket, and he's getting first downs, but he's not allowed to do enough because eventually the Bucs are able to pressure him and hit him. So after the Chiefs punt on the following possession after the touchdown in the second quarter, well, the Bucs continue to expose the reigning Super Bowl champions apart, and they picked them apart on their run defense, which I mentioned last week was going to be the Chiefs' weakness, and their secondary, which apparently regressed back to their 2018 version of themselves in this game. So in this next possession, Tampa Bay attacked the Chiefs with a dose of Gronk and their running back Ronald Jones, and they did it methodically. They mixed it with Gronk and they ran it with Ronald Jones, and then they got a big play. They got I think they were around the 30 or 40 of the Chiefs, or I think they were still on their own 30 or 40, but they got a big play regardless. A big 33-yarder to Mike Evans, but as the Bucs were already in the red zone, they're at the goal line, they were stopped 2 times. They were stopped 2 times by the Chiefs defense. They stopped Ronald Jones. They couldn't get the touchdown. So the Chiefs defense get a break. But it was only momentarily. And the Chiefs get the ball back, but they have to throw it out out the end zone, otherwise they were going to get a safety. So Patrick Mahomes finds Kelce and gets a good enough yardage so they're not tight on their next possession. But unfortunately, they don't have the ball for long because Patrick Mahomes throws a bunch of incomplete passes and they have to punt again. But here's where the mistakes start to pile in for the Chiefs. They get a holding penalty forced on them, and then when they have to repunt, their punter freaking botches the kick, and Tampa Bay gets good field position for the next possession. So the penalties are starting to pile on here, and this is where the Chiefs are starting to kind of significantly and surely cost themselves this game here. The dumb mistakes with the penalties here. So it continues with the safety, Tyrann Mathieu. He had an interception, but it was wiped out on a defensive holding call by Charvarius Ward. So that interception could have given the offense some momentum and possibly given the Chiefs a potential lead or a momentum swing. But because of the penalty, Tampa Bay got another opportunity, and they got yet another opportunity when on 4th and whatever, on the field goal attempt that could have only been a 7-point deficit for the Chiefs. Receiver McCole Hardman lined up off sides, and the Bucs got it was enough for it was 4th and 5, and an offside penalty is 5 yards, which was enough for a first down. So the Bucs got yet another chance, and with that second chance of life, Tom Brady found Gronk again, wide open for a 17-yard touchdown. So pretty much the Bucs are up 14-3 in this second quarter. So at this point, the Chiefs get the ball back, but you soon start to realize that, like, you continue to realize actually that the team starts to, like, not really help out Mahomes at all. So I already mentioned the offensive line, because Mahomes was pretty much running for his life. He was pretty much running left, running right, because Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul and Levante David, like, he's another, like, linebacker for the Bucs. They were making life hell for Mahomes with these pressure packages. I gotta give credit to Todd Bowles, because there were no, like, blitzes or anything. He was just like, you know what? I'm gonna let you guys do the work. I'm gonna let my defensive line try to pressure Mahomes, and even if they don't get him, I still trust them. I believe my defensive line is the best group of players in the world, and, well, they proved it with several of their 29 pressures, apparently, which is the most in the Super Bowl. So even though you have, like, backups, which, yes, played a role, Mahomes, like, didn't help himself by throwing erratically, and that, because of Mahomes' erratic throws, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the rest of the Chiefs' offense, mind you, their like timing on catches were kind of messed up, but at the same time, even when Mahomes got some time to throw, the Bucs secondary actually contained Kelce and especially Tyreek Hill. So Mahomes is trying to figure out what the hell to do here. So on this next possession, after the Bucs scored the touchdown to make it 14-3, Travis Kelce and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are at least the only two players that were useful for this offense, because, as I again mentioned, Tyreek Hill was pretty much a ghost here. He was pretty much just a disappearing act. So the Chiefs, like, are in the red zone, and they don't get another like third down conversion. So I don't know why they did this. They normally do this to their opponents. They go for it on fourth down. That, like, they downplay like their opponents that, oh, we can get this fourth down on these guys. But Andy Reid actually went for the field goal instead of being aggressive and going for it on fourth down when you're down 14-3 in the Super Bowl. Yes, it's the second quarter, but you're down 14-3 in the Super Bowl. And even if you don't make it, you gotta at least try something, man. You're running out of options at this point. So they get the field goal. It's 14-6. It doesn't seem that bad right now. But then you get to the Bucs' last possession on halftime, before the half. So the Bucs are just trying to run the clock out, or they're just, because honestly they don't really, I guess they were content with the score, but the Chiefs called timeout. Like, they called 2 timeouts, actually all their timeouts, and that left so much time for the Bucs to, like, actually want to consider scoring on the Chiefs' already, like, bad secondary. And this is where, like, once the Chiefs started calling their timeouts and the Bucs started giving a damn about wanting to score before the half, the Chiefs continued to shoot themselves in the foot with penalties. So the first one was a big, bad, no pass interference penalty on the corner, Bashaud Breeland, when he grabbed the legs of the receiver Mike Evans when Tom Brady threw a long bomb to him, tried to throw a long bomb to him. But, I mean, it was kind of overthrown anyway, but you still can't grab him. You still can't grab him on the process, like, on the way to the catch. So, that cost him so much yardage, and it put him in the red zone. And around the Chiefs' 24-yard line with less than 30 seconds to go, Tyrann Mathieu commits the Chiefs' second PI penalty in less than a minute on Mike Evans in the red zone. Not in the red zone, the end zone. So that moves the ball up to the 1-yard line. And Tom Brady throws a short pass to Antonio Brown. And just like that, the Bucs are all over the Chiefs 21-6 at half. Yikes. What bed did the Chiefs shit on so much that the Chiefs got shat on themselves? What did they do? What who did they piss off so much? Like, really? Like, what is going on here? But anyway, it was 21-6 at halftime. I mean, even though we've seen some crazier things in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs were not playing Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl. They're not playing Jimmy Garbage Pail. Jimmy freaking injury prone in the Super Bowl. They're not playing Baker Mayfield. They're not playing Josh Allen in the playoffs anymore. They're playing, no, I guess you can't call it a debate anymore, as much as I don't like the guy, Tom Brady. They're playing the greatest of all time in football. You're playing Tom Brady when it matters the most, and you're down 21-6. You're playing so damn conservatively. Your defense sucks. Your offensive line, even though it has reserves, is playing so shitty. And you got a quarterback who is playing hurt. And your receivers for the Chiefs have been so bad. Are not even trying to get open. Like, the Bucs are just doing so good of a job containing them, and the Chiefs we're not doing anything to get open. But nonetheless, crazier things have happened. It was only 21-6 going to the half, so we get the halftime show. I want to touch on this briefly because I was low key kind of excited. Honestly, in recent years, I haven't cared too much about halftime shows. Since I guess Katy Perry's halftime show, where she had that shark on the stage. But I like The Weeknd. I like The Weeknd's music and all that. I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't good. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't bad either. I mean, it was. I guess you could call it average. But I mean, nothing too exciting happened. I did like that little thing they were doing, like in the that thing that's a meme now. What I don't know what do you call it, that room thing that with all the lights. I'm so out of touch. But anyway, I mean, it was alright. I was just waiting for The Weeknd to sing Blinding Lights because it was the theme song to last year's WrestleMania. And, well, I mean, let's just hope that The Weeknd actually does perform at WrestleMania this year. So that's all I can hope for. So halftime is over. And then we move on to the second half. The Chiefs get the ball to start the second half. And, well, they needed a big opening possession if they ever wanted to get back in this game. So they get a good start with that, with a 26-yard run from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And as they got near the Tampa Bay red zone, that defense tightened up again for Tampa Bay, and Shaq Barrett in that front seven pressured Mahomes again. That offensive line was still failing Mahomes, and Mahomes was still running for his life. and all they got was a field goal. Andy Reid, what are you doing here? Like, your team's Super Bowl hopes, your team's chances of a repeat are on the line. You have a chance to make some history here. You had the chance to be the second team in Super Bowl history to come back to come back from the largest deficit. But you're getting conservative again. 21-9, and frankly, 9 points is all the Chiefs store going forward. So now the Bucs get the ball. I don't know why. What happened there? I had a brain fart. The Bucs get the ball back, and as has been the theme all night, the Bucs went marching on with their swords, and Leonard Fournette rushes down to the end zone and for a 27-yard touchdown to extend the lead by 19 points. 28-9. And wow, that's a score we've seen in the Super Bowl before. I mean, 28-3, but we've still seen it in the Super Bowl at the end of the third quarter. 28-9. Remember that, Falcons fans? Yeah, remember that? Now, at that point, there's still over 7 minutes left. The Chiefs still had time to try and hope to see whatever comeback hopes they had. Well, on the next possession, Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. And that was after he took a sack sandwich from Shaq Barrett. And on the ensuing possession, the Bucs made it 31-9. And that was pretty much the final score there. Everything that happened after that, it was a scoreless fourth quarter, but from that point on, it was pretty much over from there because the Chiefs showed no hope for its fan base that they're coming back in this game because they were playing hurry-up offense when it was already all said and done, and the Bucs were just trying to do what the Falcons should have done, what the 49ers should have done last year by controlling the clock and running the damn football with Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. And although the Bucs punted, they ate up 5 minutes off the clock in their first possession of the fourth quarter. So that's already that's already 10 minutes by the time the Chiefs got the ball back. And when the Chiefs got the ball back, they were moving too damn slow. If they wanted a chance to come back in this game, they had to move faster, and they didn't. They did not move fast at all. They were just it's like 180, and then every time they got up, it was like you can't see it on the auto version, but they were walking so slow. So, even then, each and every chance that the Chiefs got into the red zone, the Bucs defense stopped them. In a fitting end, after the 2-minute warning, Patrick Mahomes got picked yet again by Devin White in the end zone. And Tampa Bay wins the Super Bowl in a surprising blowout, 31-9. And they got the historic win. They beat the Chiefs. They won. They not only host the Super Bowl, but they won the Super Bowl at home. There's a lot to take away from this game. Let's start with the Tampa Bay Bucks. They played great complementary football on both sides of the ball. Now, for the offense, I gotta admit, Tom Brady proved so many of us wrongs when going into this game. He showed no signs of that he's aging. Even at age 43, he was still throwing darts to Gronk, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette. Even on that long bomb to Evans that resulted in the pass interference anyway, he could still throw those long lobs, if you know what I mean. But it's crazy that even at 43, Tom Brady can still play at a really great level. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, but with 7 rings to his name, and he actually stuck to Bill Belichick and the Patriots by actually proving that he can go to a different team and win without the Patriots and Bill Belichick. I hate to say it, but Brady is actually the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time, at least in football. When it comes to basketball, Michael Jordan is the GOAT there. So, I guess Brady really is the GOAT. Now, as for the rest of the offense, one of the keys I mentioned in my preview was about the offensive line. Now, they did allow 1 sack, and that was in, I think it was either the first or second possession. But after that, they protected Brady all game long. And that was key for allowing Brady to throw wide open to various wide open receivers, get the ball moving, allow a lot of good running lanes for Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. So good job by that offensive line in contrast to the Chiefs. As for the defense, Shaq Barrett once again showed up in this game. He had a big time game by pressuring Mahomes and even helped his defense contribute by especially having Ndamukong Suh get that big 8-yard sack on Mahomes late in the game. And I think I mentioned this before, but the Bucs secondary played lights out in this game, and they practically shut down Tyreek Hill. They made him go ghost until it was garbage time in the fourth quarter, where he pretty much racked up his stats. But again, stats is irrelevant on this podcast because Tyreek Hill's performance was trash, and the Bucs defense made sure that Tyreek's performance was trash. And I gotta give props to the coaching staff, especially the offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich and defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. They put together a really great scheme, the really great game plan, and they really adjusted from their mistakes back when they first met the Chiefs in Week 12. So great job by them. So as a reward for their effort, the Tampa Bay Bucks now complete the first ever feat in NFL history, the first team to compete and win a Super Bowl at home. So congratulations to the Tampa Bay Bucks. And no one can ever take away that fact from you. Now, as for the Chiefs, man, who did you piss off so bad? Who did you piss off so bad that they already sent down the Super Bowl curse on you? Patrick Mahomes, I don't know what happened here. He still made some very crazy throws in this game, but I don't know. I can't necessarily put the entirety of blame on here, but he was just making so many erratic throws, and especially when he made the interceptions in this game. I guess without a really good having an offensive line, a really solid or good offensive line, even the greatest the really good quarterbacks like Mahomes are gonna struggle without one. You've already seen it with Deshaun. I guess Mahomes has seen firsthand, with Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, and hell, I guess you could say a statue of a quarterback like Jimmy G, that Mahomes is gonna be running for his life all day long if he has no offensive line to go off of. And speaking of the offensive line, they were a good majority of the reason why that offense couldn't do anything at all. Because, like I said before, Mahomes had to run for his life. The offensive line couldn't protect his ass from getting hit, from getting sacked, from stopping him from making stupid decisions. this is pretty much the reverse of what I previewed for the Bucs last week. So those, like, the offensive line failed on all aspects. Even if it was just like the backups playing, like, I know it's hard to replace your starting linemen, but these backups, like, knew what they were getting to. They knew they had to step up for the starting ones that were out due to injury or opting out due to COVID. They had to step up if they wanted to help this team get another championship, and they failed. They completely failed. And speaking of failing, the receiving core outside of Travis Kelce, they didn't play well at all. Travis Kelce was, like, literally the only one that actually did something with Mahomes. And I guess you could say Clyde Edwards-Helaire until Andy Reid abandoned the running game. So, I already mentioned this, that Tyreek Hill was already shut down by the Bucs secondary. And when it came to garbage time and the Bucs were already on the verge of winning, Tyreek Hill finally started to say, "Hey, let me buff up my stats a bit." Yeah, how'd that turn out, pal? So, I don't know. The Chiefs defense not the Chiefs defense, we'll get to them in a bit, but the Chiefs offense that had a good reserve, like, of receivers in McCole Hardman and a returning Sammy Watkins and Demarcus Robinson, they were key in, like, helping this team in getting another championship. But, like, with the offensive line, they couldn't get open. They couldn't catch passes. So they failed too. They get Fs because they had Butterfingers. They couldn't get past the Bucs defenders. They couldn't get open. So they failed too. And have I mentioned enough about the secondary? Have I mentioned enough about that Tyrann Mathieu-led secondary that returned back to their 2018 form? Like, allowing pretty much an opposing offense to run them over like they did on Sunday. Because that's what I saw. That's what I saw on Sunday. That was a secondary back in 2018 that allowed way too many little plays that turned into big plays, and way too many big plays that turned into touchdowns or, like, getting into the red zone. This was also a secondary that shot themselves in the foot with too many penalties, and I think they also had the most penalty yards and a half. That's not going to win you the Super Bowl. That, I don't know what they were thinking going in. I don't know if they were so overconfident. I don't know if they were so up their own ass that they thought that they could win against an old ass quarterback. But this is still Tom Brady. I like, as much as I don't like the dude, you're still playing against Tom Brady and a just as talented Bucs team. And they failed on Sunday. They failed in this game. So all in all, Patrick Mahomes was not the reason the Chiefs lost. Now, you can give some blame to him, like with all the erratic passing and all that, but there was so much around him that could have helped him. And they all failed him. They all failed Mahomes. And in turn, they didn't repeat. They didn't get another ring. And who knows? As much as I don't want to do it, they could become the latest victim of the Super Bowl curse. Coming from a Niners fan, maybe. Welcome to the club. And let me touch on this one just for a second. I touched on penalties a lot here on today's episode. The Chiefs defense was complaining so much about the penalties. I'm just thinking to myself, you were getting off scot-free. And this, again, I just have to say it. The Chiefs were getting off so scot-free last year in the Super Bowl when they were holding on Nick Bosa. They had a face mask on George Kittle. They had a roughing the passer call on Jimmy Garoppolo. And yet the referees let that slide. But bitch, the Chiefs got their asses exposed. This time around, the refs exposed their ass. They weren't gonna let that slide. But unless they had the Tom Brady bias. But who knows? But the Chiefs weren't gonna get a free pass this time. And they got embarrassed. They got absolutely embarrassed because of it. So, the Super Bowl has come and gone. The Chiefs got embarrassed on the biggest stage. The Bucs made some history. Overall, all I can say is, well, it was the Super Bowl that was kind of shocking. And there's also a Super Bowl that was actually, I don't know, weird. That was weird because of how little fans there were and so many cardboard cutouts. But we'll get to that in a bit. Now, as for some off-season needs, because the off-season has officially gone underway, the Kansas City Chiefs, you need to retool that offensive line, man, because if any indication of what you saw on Sunday, is any proof that you need to retool your offensive line, then I don't know what to tell you. It's like on the biggest stage of football, and you don't see that you need to beef up that offensive line, then you're not running it back in 2021. You also need to beef up that secondary, man. That corner position needs work because the Chiefs' asses got toasted by the Bucs receiving core. They could also use some help at the wide receiver depth. Tyreek Hill can't be the only guy that Mahomes throws to, and as we saw on Sunday and sometimes during the playoffs, that against the right opponent, against the right defense, a stronger defense, the receiver reserves aren't always going to be there to save Mahomes' ass. They can also use a linebacker and probably some help at the defensive line because they didn't, after that sack in the first quarter on Brady, they couldn't get to him at all. They couldn't get to Brady at all. So they could use some help on the defensive line. It's just a matter of how they're going to do it. The Chiefs are over the cap space, so they're in the red. So they might have to restructure some deals if they want to get that done. As for the Buccaneers, yes, they still have Tom Brady, but at some point in time, I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year during the offseason. They have to address the quarterback position. Again, might not be this year, but probably next year or two. They have to address the quarterback because even at age 43, yes, Tom Brady's still great, playing at a great level. Who knows how long Brady will play? Who knows how long he's going to be playing at such a high level and playing for Super Bowls? And no, Blaine Gabbert certainly not going to be that guy that's going to take the crown, taking the throne when Brady retires in Tampa. So eventually, at some point down the line, they got to address the quarterback position. You got to re-sign Shaq Barrett. He's proven that he's worth the money, and they could use some depth, some reserves at cornerback, safety, and along the defensive line. Beef it up, so he can continue a possible return trip to the Super Bowl and maybe repeat as champions. So, before I say thank you to the NFL and all that for actually making it to the end of this season, I want to bring up a bonus topic for you all. And while it's kind of related to football, it's not really not. It's actually related to wrestling. And while I normally don't do this, like two topics on the same show, like try to integrate football and wrestling on the same episode. I mean, even though like my podcast is about like WWE, All Elite Wrestling, and the NFL, I try to make each episode one or the other. But I have to mention it. I have to mention it here, and that it's about the WWE, and what they gonna do, like for WrestleMania 37, because in regards to the crowd, because honestly, they were likely watching this game. They were watching the Super Bowl, looking at that crowd full of, I guess it was 25,000 fans, but the cardboard cutouts made it so that it was a full house. I'll admit it to you. When I first turned on the Super Bowl on Sunday, I thought it was like a full house of fans. I was like, really now? We're doing this now in Florida? But like after Jim Nantz mentioned it on TV, like during a segment, there were cardboard cutouts and you could have a picture on them for $100. And I thought to myself, that's pretty reasonable. And maybe, just maybe, I have an idea. What if WWE did that? What if WWE did something like that? So, with the Super Bowl in Tampa, like Raymond James Stadium, now done with, obviously we got WrestleMania in April. I think it's April 11th or 12th. Remind me on those dates if you're watching this on YouTube. So this is the first time that a stadium hosts both the Super Bowl and WrestleMania in the same calendar year. So that's a first. That's honestly a first. And it could have been next year too with SoFi Stadium if California wasn't so damn stupid with the COVID. Like so damn strict. But anyway, like now the question remains, how does the WWE handle like fans at WrestleMania? How they handle crowd? We haven't seen how they like the NFL did with testing, but we've seen like how they spaced out fans at the game. So obviously they can't have a full house by April because the vaccine is still not likely to be available by then. And I imagine that it's even with the capacity not being like fully restricted because Florida is weird. I feel like WWE's still gonna have that hard cap of either 35,000 because, well, Mr. McMahon is probably gonna be like, oh, the Super Bowl had 25,000 fans. What if I one up them by 10,000 or 15,000 more? Yeah. So I think the WWE also has that advantage of not only one-upping, they're probably going to one-up the NFL by having more fans, but they can also do that because they have the advantage of having the ring on the field. So they have that floor level, but it's a matter of how many they're going to have down there because you got to socially distance them, obviously have everyone wear masks. You got to test them before they go in each night. Because remember, WrestleMania is 2 nights. So outside of filling the floor level and how you socially distance them, how do you fill the bowl? How do you fill like the main part of the stadium, the bowl level? Do you fill it up with more fans? Do you offer more tickets? Or do you do what the NFL did and you still offer ticket, you still offer seats in that area, which I imagine they will, but do you also fill it up with cardboard cutouts of yourself, like people? And how much, if they do that, how much do they charge? I feel like they could do it at a very reasonable price, and it could make them a lot of money, despite the actual wrestling product being iffy. But that's besides the point. I think if WWE took the route the NFL did, in regards to having fans at WrestleMania, socially distant fans around the ring, and if they have some around the stadium, around the bowl level, the upper level of the stadium, along with some cardboard cutouts of fans. I know Vince wants to be a purist and have actual fans and like in the stands, but you gotta understand, we're still in a pandemic. We still don't have the vaccine available to the general public. It's just, yeah, you're not gonna have the Thunderdome like screens like placed all over the stadium. It's a waste of electricity and it's a waste of time. So I think the best thing to do for WWE is take the NFL route, offer cardboard cutouts for a certain price for fans that can't go to WrestleMania this year because they probably don't want to. Some fans don't want to risk going out to Florida just for WrestleMania, and just fill that up with whatever seats that aren't filled. And if they do that, given there's no positive cases from whoever attended the Super Bowl, then I don't see any problem WWE running WrestleMania with limited fans in April. So we'll see what happens there with the WWE and WrestleMania. But WWE should have probably learned something from the Super Bowl at least. But yeah, I normally don't integrate both topics like that I base my podcast around into one episode. I usually keep it one way or the other, but I had to for this occasion because it was related to each other, but probably not going to do that going in the future. But that's it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that even though that the it was weird, even though that was awkward at first, that even though that it could have been handled a little bit better, I just gotta say that the NFL season, I guess I just gotta give some credit to the NFL for actually pulling through with it. I know there was like a lot of like COVID outbreaks, players testing positive. I mean, I know there was a lot of hassle, and I hope everyone that tested positive during this season is now okay. And again, I just wish it could have been handled better, but I hope that everyone that played during the season is now safe, and I'm very grateful and happy that players were willing to sacrifice their livelihood to play during a pandemic season. And I will never I really don't know what to say right now because they put their lives on the line just to entertain us. And during this sad state that we're in right now in the country, in the United States, and they did it for our entertainment. In a time where like any sport shouldn't be happening right now because the pandemic, the coronavirus is still like at large. There's still a lot of positive cases. There's people dying due to this disease, and here we still have sports running wild, going strong. And the fact that we made to the Super Bowl, yes, with no delays and no game cancellations, but despite the hassle, and despite the way it's been handled, I mean, just gotta say, it's like, thank you to the NFL. Thank you that we actually made it. Now, hopefully the NFL learns from this experience, because hopefully they'll act better next time with regards to if this thing happens next season, like when they better handle it, like, and what to do. But the big question, at least in my mind, is if whether or not they'll have fans next season, at least for all the teams, because there are some teams like the Giants, the Jets, I think the Ravens, the 49ers, the Raiders. There were a lot of teams that didn't have fans in this at their games because their state, their city, the cities that they played in, they disavowed fans being there. So I don't know if it'll happen, but it's still I still say it's a long shot, but it remains to be seen. But for now, the pandemic riddled NFL season is over with. I don't know. It's kind of weird to say I'm glad that we got an NFL season in the first place, because of how it's handled. But we're here. We actually managed to finish the NFL season, and all I can say is, again, the NFL has been kind of like an escape from the pressures of the outside world for me for the last couple of years, more so than wrestling, to be honest with you. And I just gotta say thank you, NFL, for providing me that escape. For now, though, consider the Tampa Bay Bucks your Super Bowl champions. Congrats to them. You guys earned it. You guys made history. And now a new day, a new year officially begins for all teams in the NFL. The offseason has been in full force since Monday, including my team, the 49ers. Speaking of the 49ers, that'll be the theme of my next episode. Next week, I held this off since the beginning of my podcast back in January, because when I started the podcast, the playoffs were rolling on, and I had to cover that first. So I finally get to talk about my team, my NFL team, the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to do a season recap of my team and that injury-riddled squad that became the latest victim hit by the Super Bowl curse. So I'm excited to talk about that next week. And I really hope that every one of you listening out there, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Anchor, enjoyed my playoff coverage. Like, even though that's technically the very first thing that we started with on this Very Cold Lasagna podcast. And I just hope you enjoyed the football coverage overall as we started throughout the first month of this podcast's life. And while, yes, I'm just a filthy casual, and while I don't have the greatest analytics or insight as most media driven or most like podcasts out there do, I'm very happy. I'm very I've been like wanting to have a platform to talk about like sports with no conviction, no judgment whatsoever. And even with judgment, I still like to hear differing opinions from other people on the world of sport, not just sports, but wrestling as well. And again, I just hope that you enjoyed my playoff coverage. And while NFL football coverage will lessen until September, there's like until September. I mean, I'm still going to talk about the 49ers next week, and there's probably going to be some talk about the free agency when it starts in March. And I may do something some episodes about the draft when the draft hits in April. But for now, I still have something to talk about, and that is wrestling. We're gonna go all out with some wrestling talk. And man, I can't wait to talk about some wrestling again. Especially when the Royal Rumble hit. Wrestling was fun to talk about. And this is why I never based my podcast around just one sport, one niche. I always like to spice it up, try to vary it, and that's the NFL, wrestling, and sometimes other sports too, if I have some knowledge on it. So look out for some wrestling related episodes in the coming weeks. I'm still in the process of planning those wrestling episodes, but for now, next week is the 49ers recap episode. That will probably be one of the last NFL football related episodes in a little bit, because the NFL offseason's been pretty quiet right now. I mean, yeah, it's been quiet for a while, but after that, it'll be some wrestling. But for now, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I am your host, DylanLasagna. Thank you all for joining me on this Super Bowl recap edition. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna to get all your updates on the podcast. And if you want to see what I do outside of it, subscribe to me here on YouTube to see all the vodcasts and exclusive extras that aren't available on the audio listening platforms. And turn on that notification bell so you'll be notified on them. And when the notification bell doesn't work, always check the channel. It really helps me a lot. And make sure to click that like button, or you can click that dislike button too. Either way, it helps out the YouTube channel. And if you listen to this on an audio platform, make sure to check me out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor FM. Give me some kind of review. It helps me out either way when it comes to improving the show. But anyway, everyone, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge, filled with your casual, cold, and dumb takes on the world of wrestling and sports. And until next time, keep that fridge cold, and I'll see you next time.